Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live today. Thank you for hopping on. We are live with one-on-one acting coaching. Why do it? My name is Sarah Gnocato, for those of you that do not know me, and I am the studio owner at Armstrong Acting Studios, as well as a resident coach of 9 years. So lots of experience at the studio when it comes to one-on-one coaching. And I will be joined today with my lovely artistic director, Susanna Fournier, who has been coaching, for years and years as well at the studio. And we're really hoping to bring our expertise and our experiences, both as the coaches and our clients' successes over the years. We're hoping to share that insight with you and answer the questions you guys have sent in. If you have any questions while we're chatting, feel free to drop them in the chat. All right, I'm going to send Susanna an invite so that she can hop on with me and we can get the conversation. All right, we'll just wait for her to hop on there. Hey guys, thank you for hopping on this beautiful Monday morning in August. Here's Susanna.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Just getting my frame, there we go.
I was just saying how I was like, thanks for hopping on, everybody. We got a good audience here with a nice Monday. I said morning, I should say afternoon in August. It's like beautiful.
I mean, it still feels a bit morning-y, but yeah, it's hot. I hope everyone's staying cool.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I was just saying, I actually introduced you. You can speak for yourself as well, just while you were joining, about what we were going to chat about today.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, for anyone who I don't know, welcome. I'm so happy to be talking with Sarah today. I'm the artistic director at Armstrong Acting Studios. I lead the advanced level training. I've taught every level at the studio, and I also am really thrilled to have been working there as a coach since 2018. I started this studio in 2016, and I've worked as a coach in pretty much all the capacities that we offer coaching at Armstrong. So I'm super excited to unpack that for those who are new to the studio or maybe haven't coached with us before, and to also just hear more about your journey as a coach, Sarah, because you have 1,000, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of how many actors you've coached in the city, and
it's funny. I feel the same way, and I'm excited to hear your experience, because it's interesting as coaches, and we'll get into this, of like, when you're working in one-on-one capacity, you don't always get to hear the other coach's experience. But Susanna and I were speaking the other day about client successes, both in like a booking capacity and also just in their journey training. And it's funny when you start to think of it. I don't know if you felt the same way, but yeah, the numbers started to climb, and it's crazy how it accumulates.
Yeah. I've lost count years ago. But yeah, it's also cool because there's certain clients that we've both coached, and over the years, sort of like, it's cool to see a success that they have, or to see when they come back after they've worked with you for a bit and they've had a breakthrough, or vice versa. And it's just like loving watching people's journey in such an intimate way.
Yeah, and I think something that Sienna and I will touch on today is like, I've definitely had clients where they do one-on-ones with me for a long period of time, and then they hop into a group class, and I know you've instructed those classes, and then they come back to the one-on-one capacity when we're between terms, and it's so cool to see what they've taken away from that group capacity and how they can bring that into their one-on-one journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know there's so much we have to talk about. We could probably talk, as we know, for hours about acting and process. But I mean, our one-on-one coaching, why do it, was a great reason to get together and have this live. So I think first we wanted to go over the different capacities in which we offer coaching at the studio, because there's actually a lot. So I know you're going to helm that, and then we can kind of unpack, like, what are the ways in which we coach, what benefits do they offer, why do it, and offer some examples. So I don't know if you just want to jump on into what are the forms of coaching that we offer at the studio?
Yes, and I love that you brought that up. One of the questions that was sent in was, is one-on-one coaching just for auditions? It's a great question.
Yeah.
Because to Susanna's point, you don't realize how many avenues there are, right? So one-on-one coaching. Okay, we have developmental coaching. Developmental coaching is, let's just lay it out as a practice coaching, meaning it's a mock audition, meaning we assign a script 24 to 48 hours in advance as per industry standard. You're coming in for the hour and you are fully in process, meaning despite how the human mind works and you want to ace the scene by the end of the hour, what you're actually doing is taking a scene that already exists out in the world from TV and film. We keep it very relevant. And you are basically using that as a vehicle to learn tools to become more independent in your process, right? I always say my job is to make you not need me as soon as possible. And so through using the script and scene work, you're able to acquire these tools and grow as an actor and evolve and have these breakthroughs and try out new material. So that is developmental coaching, and we can get further into that. And then we get into audition coaching, which since COVID has kind of changed a little bit. I remember, so many days where someone would come in and they'd have an audition at 2 p.m. They'd coach with me at 12 noon. They'd have an hour break, so it was fresh in their head. I always recommend coaching same day if someone's going in the room. Those are fewer and far between now, sometimes more often in a callback capacity. But audition coaching one-on-one is just you give us your material, whatever your agent sends you. We work through it, and then you go to the audition and you kind of, let's say, re-engage those choices because you cannot recreate the take, nor would you want to. Since COVID, that's become a lot more of self-tapes.
We're in the self-tape normalcy of the first round is a tape. So what used to be an audition coaching, we now call like a tape. We're doing a tape. We're doing the audition. It's happening.
Yes, exactly. So the opposite of developmental in that way being we are trying to, at the end of the session, achieve a product, and we do achieve a product. So in a way, there can be moments in those sessions I feel are more directorial because they're so scene specific, despite still being very collaborative. Whereas in a developmental session, it's just like, let's go on this journey together and let's figure out the tools that help you and work for you because every actor is different. And then we get into, well, we'll stay with the audition for a second here before I get into the next part. Callback coaching, chem tests, screen tests, all those things. So this can tie into a callback that exists on Zoom.
Yeah.
This can be in person again, especially when we're looking at chem reads. I've had clients recently who did screen tests via tape, which I hadn't really experienced before.
Weird, but
Very, very interesting and very curious. I was like, I'm curious if casting watched all their tapes leading up because a lot of the time now you're booking off a tape.
yeah.
And sometimes that's 3 tapes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do have the situation where the client is given a callback and they're given notes from casting for a retape. So coming in with those notes and working with the client on, okay, how do we incorporate those notes? How do you feel about the notes? How do we parse the notes, which can be challenging. And I think is one reason that actors really do seek out coaching in the callback period, because it can be very intimidating when you're not in the room. You can't kind of always clarify what the notes mean. Sometimes the notes are super helpful from casting. Other times they can be quite vague. And I think having that coach help you parse what's your interpretation and just be that sounding board for unpacking those notes in a callback situation can be extremely helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I had an actor the other day for this exact situation for a project, and it was, I do feel like I'm an interpreter between the casting director and the actor. You look at a vague note, like pull it back, and you're like, okay, the actor's going, what do I do with this? And you kind of have to be in the middle, like the middleman.
Casting director it's coming from too, because like I know we just like coach so many different clients and are familiar with like what are the kind of projects so-and-so casts and like what's their taste and like like so it's leveraging I think sometimes to the coach's relationship to the the Toronto industry, to the casting directors, to understanding like what does so-and-so mean when they say make it more grounded versus what someone else means when they say
Absolutely. I had this experience a while back with Letterkenny because that's such a specific show, like the tone of that, and it was really fun to be like, oh, I have seen what kind of is successful in this way or notes that were received.
Yeah.
Therefore, I feel like I can help you in a tonal way with this that maybe you wouldn't have known otherwise.
This project.
Yeah. So
exactly. The audition coaching is very product oriented, and that's not a session where we're like, how to act. We just don't have time like a 55-minute taping to be like the fundamentals of acting. It's like, what is this audition specifically, and how are we interpreting your part in it? But every process, the first round, the callback, the chem, or the screen test. What about your experience? I know we also offer pre-production coaching, and I don't think a lot of people know about that aspect of coaching. So, wondering if you can just share in about what is that?
It's such a great question. Pre-production coaching, yes, this is the other side. We covered the audition, and now this is more like the booking or the on-set experience, which I'll touch on. So pre-production can exist from either my client coming to me and they have booked the project and they would like to run over it before they shoot. I've had actors who are out in Vancouver on series, so we do it on Zoom. I have people who are here in the city shooting, so we do it in person. I also have had productions bring me on in a pre-production capacity. So productions can bring a coach on for on-set coaching, which is in the moment as you're shooting, whereas pre-production is like the prep for the actor, and sometimes that's in tandem with on-set coaching, sometimes it's separate. So pre-production coaching is, for me, it's very interesting because as a coach, you can kind of put the parameters in and build the character and develop it, but you also do not know how the other actors are going to be on set. So there's less in your control. Whereas when I'm doing a tape with somebody, I can kind of control my read with them.
Yeah, I definitely see the role in pre-production coaching is, I see it a lot as like making sure that actor feels really confident now, especially if, let's say, they're booking a role, that's the first time they're jumping into an age range or a different genre, let's say, or we take an emerging actor, a younger actor, and this is their first like sizable recurring or lead or supporting lead. And, you know, definitely when production reaches out to us as coaches, sometimes it's because they've, you know, sometimes discovered a really amazing new fresh talent, but they don't have a lot of credits and they don't have a lot of on-set experience. They're perfect for this character, but actually, you know, set is also not the place where there's time to draw out that nuance of the performance. Or even if it's your first time on a big set, a pre-production coaching can definitely walk you through what is the day going to be like, what are the expectations, how fast do we work in television, so that you're coming in with your, you know, your prepped acting choices, and those can be adjusted by the director on the day, but that you know what the function of the scene is, you know why this scene exists in episode 8, you know how to work out of order, you know, like these kinds of things that no one tells you are going to be skills you need to hone as an actor, because I just think like the days are long, right? Like you could be on set 14 hours minimum and back again the next day and back again the next day. And so, you know, I remember my first big gig just sort of being like, I don't even know how set works.
Oh, totally. I actually...
phrases people are using, like back to ones, like what does that even mean? You know?
I am so glad to hear you bring that up, Susanna. I was working with an actor a couple years ago, and she was one of the leads on an Amazon Prime series, but she had a ton of theater credits, had never been on a TV set, and I brought her in the studio pre-production, and that was so much of what we talked about. And there was a lot of like emotional, really high intensity scenes. And it's so interesting when you're coming from a theater background, being like, I want to feel all those things in every single take from the depths of my soul. And I'm like, well, A, I don't want you to have to go through that when you're doing multiple takes on set, but B, let's set it up exactly like you said. Like you're gonna go for lunch in your trailer, and then right after lunch, you're gonna shoot this scene. What are you doing?
Parent on screen is gonna die, and you're gonna sob over the, you know.
And then to your point, it's out of chronological order, so you never met the person that's actually playing the parent, so you don't even, right? So
someone organized the shoot that way and just wasn't very kind to your process as an actor and was like, and go.
Yes, exactly. So for me, you're so right. It's building confidence. It's getting them to have an understanding of being on set, but it's also for me mostly character development, because I'm like, the relationships will naturally evolve within the scene, and we can establish what those are. Again, it's kind of like putting these pillars in place, but being like, okay, what lens are you looking through from your perspective? So that's where pre-production coaching comes in. And then on-set coaching is so amazing. And the first time I did it it was so interesting to me because, again, you're there to support. It's very, for me, it's less hands-on as when I'm in studio. I am more there to run through the scenes right before we put them up, especially when it comes to these high emotional ones. I'm there between takes. I'm kind of running in and out if the director would like me to, and making sure my actor's okay, and making sure that they're using helpful tools to get them there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, like an on-set director, this is potentially the first time they're meeting the actor. Maybe they met them in the callback. Maybe they didn't, depending on the size of the role. And the director has so many things that they need to be aware of on the day. They're working with the camera team, the lighting team, the DOP, that they might not have, you know, a ton of space to really work with, especially an emerging actor or a young talent. So having an on-set coach, I know that especially in kids programming and youth programming, it's quite often that there's an on-set coach just for the young talent. So that, you know, if you've developed a relationship with that client, then it's very easy for the director to know they have that support to get the performance they're looking for.
Yes. Yeah, you said that perfectly. And the reality is just that actors often say to me, "Oh, when you're an on-set coach, isn't that kind of the director's job?" And it's like the director's job is not to just be there with the actor. That's why we make choices when we go in. It's they have so much other stuff going on. That's where an on-set coach can be very, very helpful. So those are kind of, I say kind of, those are a lot of options.
Yeah.
Those are all the ways one-on-one coaching exists. And I've touched on it a couple times. I have clients all over the world, and I know you do as well, Susanna. So all of these, every single one that we listed, other than on set, exists on Zoom as well,
Yeah.
which has been a nice outreach.
Been an awesome way to work with folks out in Vancouver, I have clients in the UK, I have clients in the States, just because I think, and something I'm going to talk a bit more about, and one of the why do it, you know, like why coach, is to get into the relationship that you end up building with a coach, especially a long-term relationship. So be able to preserve those without the, you know, limitations of geography has been amazing, and a lot of clients feel that they can have that support now if they go down to LA, but their coach is in Toronto, or they're working on a gig, they're shooting somewhere else, and they have other auditions coming up. So being able to coach over Zoom is like a huge blessing, and it's made coaching a lot more accessible to folks, especially because you can tape over Zoom. We can work a session over Zoom, and you can tape it on your end. The other thing I want to bring in, and a lot of people don't think of it this way, but in terms of our developmental coaching, so our process-based coaching, which Sarah touched on first, we also loop our group classes into that classification of coaching. I still consider a class that I am teaching or leading is coaching. That's coaching actors. It's just coaching them in a group communal setting versus a one-on-one. So the actor in one of our group classes is going to get that one-on-one time, albeit with their fellow classmates watching. You still get one-on-one time, but you also get the added benefit of learning by watching and observing other actors at work, how they interpret a note, watching the playback monitors that we have in each studio, and then, you know, that going up and, you know, from the inside, from the outside, and watching someone else learn and develop, which is a huge, you can learn so much on screen from watching other folks go up and take a pass at it, get notes, what works, what doesn't. It's a huge part of our development as actors. So I would also say that is, you know, that's the fullest extent. We have process-based coaching, classes and one-on-ones, and then we have product-based coachings, which Sarah has gone over. And then we also have this like other aspect of coaching that is directly related to like the industry side of acting. So we have like the creation of a pitch package or a small reel, a couple different kinds of reels. So I'd say like, again, the spectrum of coaching is wide. I wonder if you can touch on just like the coaching that we do specifically towards generating the marketing materials or PR materials that an actor needs to work in the industry.
Yeah, it's a great point because I feel like as a coach, I don't know if you feel this way. I'm sure you do, Susanna. You sometimes feel like you're wearing multiple hats when it comes to things like a pitch package, which, you know, if you're looking at a demo reel. So for example, someone comes in and it's kind of an in between developmental and getting a product by way of I have to get a product, but it's also like me learning how to work with that actor or really getting specific with that actor. And what we typically do is, you know, two contrasting scenes you're taping, just so an agent, if you're submitting to an agency, for example, they can see your range, and that can look like a dramatic scene and a comedic scene. That can look like a vulnerable scene and a more gritty scene. There are different ways to find that contrast, steering into the actor's strengths, not being like, this is the moment I'm going to try the hardest scene I've ever done.
That's such an important point you bring up, because when I am coaching a pitch package, and just for anyone who doesn't know what that is specifically to secure rep. So it's a very short reel. It's like a hot minute of some of their best work. But I am specifically looking through consultation with the actor. What are your strengths? What's the kind of work you want to be doing? What's your playable age range? What, like, it's looking at that product side of the industry, right? What is the product? And I know sometimes people feel gross when we talk about like, my acting is my passion and my art and my creativity. And yes, it is. But if you want to professionalize it and you want to be a paid working professional actor, we have to address the artistic side of your process and your creativity and your artistry. And then we do have to reckon with this as a business. And so what is the product? And make sure you can separate in a healthy way what's you and your creativity and what's the product, right? Because I think another thing that we're going to get into with coaching is like a big question when people come in and they're looking for rep is a conversation I have with them is like, is the product ready? Like, are you ready to be competitive? Is what you are offering in terms of your product competitive with the market? Because if it's not, we need to still work on the development. We still need to keep working on process. We need to like hone your skills, sharpen your toolkit. Because one thing I always say is if you get that agent's attention, right? They're getting hundreds of submissions and they decide to click on your footage and it's not ready, that like they might not look at it again for a year or 2 years.
And they might tell you that. They might say, come back in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe if we waited 6 months and trained really hard, was in classes and doing coaching, and then we sent it, yes, like now we have something. So it's, you know, I'd say another part of coaching when we're looking at industry materials is we also do industry consultations. You and I both do those at the studio, which is like kind of answering that question, like, are your materials competitive? Like, where are you at in your process? It doesn't mean, okay, they're not, therefore you're not going to be an actor. It just might mean, in my professional opinion, I don't know yet that your product is competitive, right?
You said it perfectly. In my professional opinion, because that's kind of where it has to be. If an actor is really driven to, they really want to get this demo reel done, of course, at the end of the day, it's their prerogative. But I will always give my professional opinion. I think that's why I say sometimes it gets almost like a developmental, where sometimes I'm like, oh, no. We don't have the toolkit here. So actually, we're not going to get this demo reel this session, but let's talk about the tools that can get you there down the road. We still have the same overall goal. It's just not instant in the way that you want it to be. And when I say multiple hats in this way, it's like, you know, you kind of touched on this, Susanna. You're looking at the product. You are your own business as an actor. You have to know what you're putting out there, especially in a very competitive industry where you want to see where your spot is. What do you have that somebody else doesn't? And, you know, I will totally, if an actor shows me their headshot, give my opinion on it.
Yeah.
We offer, you know, resume templates on our website, for example, if people just want to download the template and fill out a resume. Like, we try to help in those ways. And an industry consultation, I'm so glad you brought that up, does all of that, which is separate from a demo reel. And also industry consultations can come from agencies as well. Agencies can say, an agent can look at an actor and think, okay, I have this brilliant actor, they're not getting called in or they're not booking. I want to send them to a one-on-one session with a coach.
What's going on? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, just treat it diagnostically. I always say that when I go into an industry consult, because normally it's with an actor I've never met, and I'm like, this is so exciting that I've never met you, because I actually just get to see this for the first time, and often that's when it clicks, right?
Yeah. So I think, like, to kind of now start that, those are all the ways in which we coach. I want to spend some time on unpacking, like, what's the benefit, right? Like, why do it? That's what our live is called. Yeah. And I want to speak to specifically our developmental coaching now. Think about, like, how does that support an actor's journey? So as Sarah mentioned, if you're coming in for a developmental one-on-one, maybe it's a diagnostic, maybe it's, I kind of want an industry consultation, I want you to look at my materials, but I also want you to look at my work, right? So when I started coaching with a new actor who I don't know, who's reached out, first I'm like, do you want me to look at your materials? Do you want me to, like, look at your headshot, talk with you? I usually start with, like, what are your goals as an actor? What are you hoping to get from these sessions? How do you like to work? So if I'm starting a new relationship with a coaching client, I want to hear their story. Like, where are they at? How long have they been acting? What are they doing? And then what brought them here? Like, what are they looking for, right? Are they trying to break into the business? Are they repped and auditioning, but not booking. This is a very strange time in the industry. We're coming out of a pandemic. The industry is trying to rebuild after strikes, so it's a very transitional, strange time. There's a lot of very frustrated actors who feel like, why am I not getting auditions? Why am I not booking? And sometimes I have to say, there are simply less projects happening right now. Yeah. Like, we are in a strange numbers game where the industry is still rebuilding, redefining itself in this unprecedented time. Like, the industry is changing a lot. So, a lot of my coaching clients are, I'm saying this as a PSA, if you're an actor and you're really frustrated right now, like, you're not alone. The industry is not where it was 4 years ago. Hopefully it will get back there. But, that doesn't mean, time to give up and, abandon ship.
Well, actually, on that, Susanna, I'm really glad you brought that up because I could totally back this, what Susanna's saying. You are not alone. But what I will say, what I love about developmental coaching in these times like this, when it's a little slower, for example, it's very easy for actors to get discouraged when they're just auditioning and they're not seeing the booking, which is and we'll get to that, but there's so many things with the booking that is beyond our control, / most of it. Yeah. But I find when I have an actor coming in consistently doing developmentals, they stay inspired because they can see the growth. Yeah. They're able just to look at the journey instead of focusing on the product, the booking.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to take a break from looking at the industry and the product and get back and touch back base with our process. I had an actor who had relocated to Canada, had worked in the film and television industry in the country that he's from, and he was feeling completely disillusioned with acting, was in a new industry, like, who am I in this market? And so he came to class, and he signed up for a class, and we just let it be messy. We just let him have sure, you're frustrated at the scene, you don't know what's going on, maybe you hate acting right now. Okay, cool. Let's not fight all that. Let's just get in there and roll around with it and be re-inspired by this art form, right? And not worry about product or about booking. And finished up the classes, and within 2 weeks of finishing the class, he booked his first Canadian project.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
He wrote to me because he was just like, I just took the pressure off myself and was having fun and fell in love with acting again. And that reinvigorated him. And time again, whether it's a client that has been coaching consistently and built a lot of momentum because they're coming weekly or bi-weekly, or they've just finished class, the amount of my actors from class who within 3 weeks of class finishing book something that's usually when it happens, right? Because when you are on deck, when you are flexing that muscle, when you are engaging with the artistry, when you are disciplined, putting that time in and investing in yourself and your product and discovering new things about yourself, that is when you stop putting so much pressure on the self-tape or on what does casting want, or should I look there at this beat or over there? I think we're also living in this reality of self-tapes where actors are now micromanaging their performances because they can watch their tape before they submit it. And when I hear an actor say well, I was taping my audition for an hour and I probably did 25 takes, I'm like, whoa. Yeah. No. Yeah. That is an overcooked, overworked. There's no way you're having fun in that. There's no way the impulses are fresh. There's no way there's spontaneity in that tape. And so then it just becomes kind of torturous to do. And it's when I watch the tape, I'm like, these performances are almost identical, but
yeah.
Freaking out about one eyebrow raise on a beat. And it's that is not the way in which we should be evaluating the tape. And that is not we can get obsessive. And so I think when I think about developmental coaching or being in class, the best thing that those give you is momentum and gives you the discipline of knowing that, if you're in class, okay, every week I'm going to be dedicating 6 hours to acting, right? Whether that's 3 hours of prep and 3 hours of class, or your classes are twice a week and it's 3 hours in class, 6 hours in class. It's just that sense of constantly doing it also allows you to refresh, right? I know it's a tricky time right now because there aren't a lot of auditions. Normally, when I have 4 auditions a week, you can't obsess over how one went because you just have to go to the next one, right? There's this sense of movement and flow and the energy keeps moving. When we get out of practice with something, right? We've stopped training, we're not in class, we haven't looked at a scene. It's like when you stop going to the gym, right? You stop doing squats, I know this. You stop doing squats and then you start again and your hamstrings are like, no.
Right.
They just fight you and you're just like, I don't want to, I don't remember, so I think the benefit to always being in a process of training, whether it's class or having, every 2 weeks, I know I'm going to prep that audition for Sarah and I'm going to have to go in and stand on the mark and fight my nerves and fight my whatever, but I'm going to feel invigorated by it and I'm going to come away with something. It's just keeping that muscle ready, right? And not over obsessing about like the highs or the lows. It's just like letting yourself be in flow.
Well, it's so interesting that you talk about, like, yes, obviously there are so many moments I'm working with an actor I have not worked with before, but the actors that have been with me on a longer journey, it is fun to see, just as you referenced someone from class, someone comes to me and they're going through a transition in playable age ranges. They've been with me since they were 14, 15, and now they're 21, and it's like things are changing.
Yeah.
And it's really fun, especially when you've built up that rapport with a coach, to go through that together, because the coach can bring their experience as an actor, but also with their other clients that they have led through these transitions, and let it be messy, because it always is. And going to a coach and saying, well, this thing used to work, this thing that I did in my prep. And it's like, well, that thing worked when you were playing totally different roles. Now we're into a whole other category. So that worked then. That's great. Now we have to redefine what works for you. And it's just really exciting, whether that's an actor you don't know, but especially when it's an actor that you have been with through that journey. Because you're like, yes, that tool, that is an accurate tool when you were playing young
Yeah.
roles,
I think
right?
the biggest benefits to working with a coach is developing that relationship,
Yeah.
developing that long-term trusting relationship where I work the best with the clients that I have worked with for a substantial amount of time, right? I know that we trust each other. I know that they are willing to encounter uncomfortable content or blocks or their own habits because they trust me. They feel safe taking risks in our working process together. I don't think it makes sense to just coach randomly with people once a week. Like, I think try a bunch of coaches and
Sure.
find the person where the way they talk or the way they work connects with you, right? Or even sometimes I know, like, oh, I'm slightly frustrated because that person has actually told me something really true about my work, and I need to go deeper into that because I kind of hate that they gave me that note. Like, for me, there's always like, oh, there's something there. If I'm like, I hate that they noticed that, like,
Right. And it is.
go closer. I should figure that out, right?
Yeah.
But think about the clients that I see all the time for developmental coachings. These are, some of my favorite clients are training all the time. And class ends and they're booking a session with me the following week and they're just in practice, right? And through training with me in class, sometimes then they book one-on-ones because they want to challenge themselves specifically with, maybe some emotional landscapes, right? They really struggle to play aggression or to play power or to play dominance in the frame. And that's very uncomfortable for them. And they want a space outside of the class setting to just look at that, which means
Yes.
maybe we do the scene twice and then we do a bunch of exercises, right? Again, developmental coaching is process based. So we are doing physical exercises, breath exercises, talking through, like, coaching can take any form. It's not just drilling the scene. It might be like they need to come and jump around and yell and try something really scary for them without being in a group setting, right? And that might be how we spend the hour. A lot of actors are really want to be able to trust that they can cry when they do. So it's like, cool, I'm gonna go see Susanna once a week so I can cry, and it's like, that's what we're doing, because it's a technique. I always say, like, if you're a gymnast and you're learning a certain move, you just need to practice that move and the components of it and take it apart. And it's not about, I think with acting, people get confused, like, why can't I access my emotions? Is there something wrong with me? And it's like, this is a skill. This is a technique. It's like learning any other skill. We need to figure out what works for you.
So I love that you said that. The crying example is such a great one, because it's one of the most common questions I get asked.
All the time.
And
how can I cry? I'm like, let's just do it right now.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Happy Monday. But no, it's funny because, just like take ego out of the situation. I'm like, I don't know how you cry. I have a ton of
Yeah,
tools
I know how
and I
I.
have no idea which ones. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm going to throw a bunch at you and we're going to figure this out together, which is kind of exactly what you're saying. It's a collaborative process. So yes, try out different coaches until you find the one that clicks. But when you find the one that clicks, it's like how we feel so invested in our regular actors that come to us every week.
Oh my God, so invested. I'm like, sometimes when and I'm sure you feel too, like, first of all, I want to say when a client books, that is their success, right? That is
Absolutely.
success. But I am so over the moon thrilled when a client
Mhm.
I've developed that relationship with books. I'm almost more excited than when I book. Like, I'm just like, because I've seen their dedication, I've seen them taking risks, and also because, you know, as a coach or as a director, right? I also work as a director, and as a teacher, I say on the first day of class, my job is to get you a little bit outside of your comfort zone
Yeah.
because that's where we learn,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm not always asking you to do something easy. Like, you came to me and said, how do I cry in a room with lights on and a camera pointed at me? And I'm like, okay, like, let's figure it out. And that's inherently uncomfortable because something about your psyche is telling you, like, don't cry here, right? Like,
Yeah.
most don't want to like stand up in front of a group of strangers and cry, except when we're on set and that's what's called for, you know?
Yes, exactly. And that is part of obviously the training as well, is like them getting there in different situations, high pressure situations, because we do create a very safe space to learn. And that's why we do create such close relationships. The amount of times I've cried over my actors booking, especially after they're like, they've been discouraged.
Yes.
They keep getting to the end of it and then they don't book the role and finally they get it. And yes, it's absolutely 1000% their success, but being on that journey with them, it's so beautiful to be like, do you see? Yes.
Olympics just happened, right? And I have this newfound respect for like the coaches at the Olympics because I'm like, they are so proud when the athlete like even if they don't place, right? Like sometimes an actor doesn't get a booking, but we work all the way to Chem Test, and I am so proud of them for just like how hard they've been training, how much they put into it, and I just know like that is a success, right? Like, a lot of clients get frustrated. Why am I not booking? Why am I not booking? I'm like, yes, but you're auditioning. Casting is seeing how close you got. You are in the mix. You are in the ring. Like, you are competitive.
And that's why the word
Now,
coach is so
you know?
important, right? Because it's so interesting that you say that. Like, I find having a coach is very helpful in those moments. When you get down to it's between you and one other person,
Yeah.
and, I'm there holding my breath, and then it goes to the other person, and the actor, part of the coaching they need is like, hey, someone on the outside to say that actually you did everything within your control, which was the work itself. At that point, it was not about your work whatsoever. There are a million other factors we cannot control. And it's really nice to have someone to bounce that off of when you can easily feel
Yeah.
discouraged. And I will quickly say, because I love what Susanna is saying about building that relationship, it's so important because if I have an actor who I taught in a class or I did developmentals with, and then they come to me with a tape, you're able to, as a coach, say, oh, hey, you're doing that thing that we talked about last week
Yeah.
in class.
Yeah.
Even though you're achieving a product, it's like you know the habits, you know the strengths, you know the challenges, and you're able to work through it together. So it's more effective and efficient, I find.
I think, there's also, I do take gratification, of course, in my own ability as a coach when a client of mine books a tape that I coached, because it does signal to me that, yeah, my instincts, my eye is in line with what the industry is going for right now. I've interpreted the material, the tone correctly. It's a reminder that, like, yes, okay, I am in tune with what is relevant and what is immediate with the industry, right? So it's not like, oh, I got, like, booking with a coach doesn't mean like, there's lots of tapes I've coached where the client did not book that job, right? But there's lots of tapes where they get very close, casting brings them in, like, we know that their work is competitive. And so I think that is the biggest role sometimes that a coach has, is being that outside eye, especially in the self-tape reality. Actors do not get feedback on their auditions anymore. Even we used to just get being in the room, the casting director would be like, great work. Like, the sense that our work was witnessed, that it was scene, like we don't have that anymore. It's really hard to get notes on a tape from casting. So as a coach, I can also offer that actor that peace of mind, that confidence, or I can be the person who's like, this is a great tape. You should be very proud of this work.
Or with that, this is a great tape. I think we achieved it in 30 minutes. I know you want to do 25 more takes
Yes.
in the hour, and having that person to be like, hey, stop. I find that is a really big part of the job too, in a way that your work is witnessed. But like in the audition, they do that. They're like,
that's right? Like that prime witness. Sometimes the actor's like, I don't know. And I was like, I do know. This is
trust me.
fake.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, yeah, you can do it again. And I think it won't be as good. And then we do it again and they're like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, okay, well, you needed to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, it's the intimacy of being that kind of prime witness, right? And knowing, you know, acting is not something we do in isolation on set. Like we are making offers and the director is shaping those offers within the larger container of the whole vision, which we as an actor don't necessarily have access to because that's the director's job, right? But you know, I think coming out of the pandemic, being in the self-tape world, like actors are working more and more in isolation in their process, which is just like bad for mental health at a certain degree. And we can start to be like, am I even close? Like, is my work anywhere? Because when I run into casting directors now at industry events, I'm just so happy to see them. It's like, oh my God, Lisa, oh my God, like Susanna, hi, like, it's so great to see you, Robin, like Jason, like, and I miss those relationships because we don't get them in the same, and casting is also like completely overwhelmed with the amount of tapes that they can now see, and they miss being in dialogue with actors too. So I think more than anything now, coaches have kind of filled in this sense of like, how do I just not feel like I'm making weird tapes in my living room alone at night, like sending them into the void, being like, does any of this matter? You know, when we're doing a self-tape, whether we're doing a developmental, I also just think having that point of connection, having that sense of your work being witnessed, having that sense of the coach coming along and being like, yeah, but have you thought about this one element? Like, I get coached, you know, oh my God, we don't have Amos on this call, but Amos has coached, I don't know, as many hundreds of actors as you and I have. And I love going to work with Amos because sometimes I just go, Amos, I just don't know if it's landing. Like I'm on the inside, I teach acting, but today is a day where I'm like, this material is challenging, I'm struggling with it. And he can just go, this is what I see.
From the outside.
Thought about this. And it's just like one missing piece that really elevates the scene, that rounds out the character, that without having someone just being on the outside. You know, when you're on the outside, you don't have the stress of being on the inside. You just get to be on the outside, you know?
Yeah.
But exactly, like acting isn't something you do alone. You do it in front of a person.
Yes. And it's so funny whenever I have actors, and this is exactly what you were saying about when I'm self-taping in my living room and you're like, does anything work? I don't know what's real anymore. And you're
prices at that point, you know?
Absolutely. Every actor has and does and will. But you know, when I have an actor, I had an actor yesterday doing a tape, and they just looked at me after the session and they said, it's just so nice to be in a studio, which kind of ties into our self-tape services, which is like you are coming in, and this is also the perk of a developmental. All our studios are set up like a mock audition room, meaning they look like a real audition room that exists in the world,
Yeah.
especially in the city of Toronto. And when you're coming in and you're doing a tape, as a coach, I know, Susanna, you feel this way too. I'm not only wearing my like creative hat of like, what's the scene? What are we doing? I have my technical hat on. I am making sure we have the cleanest audio. We have the best lighting. We are shooting on HD cameras so we can have these moments of stillness where thought activity is seen. We do playback on the monitor. And the best part that I always hear from actors is I just get to go home because when you're done your session,
Yes, they're just free. Like I'm always like on a Friday, I'm like, you get your weekend, you know, like that feeling of you've been stressed about your audition, you get to show up, you bring your wardrobe, you know, you come made up, but we take care of everything, right? Here's the X, you know, I'm gonna make sure that you're lit well, I'm gonna make sure that you're framed the way you wanna be framed, I'm gonna make sure that the sound is good, and then James, the center, heart, and soul of Armstrong is gonna edit your tape, put in a title card, trim the tops and tails where you say your slate in the weirdest way possible, and then we do it again. Like, I wish we had a reel of just like slates from Armstrong, because the amount of actors, especially if they've done a tape which has really frustrated them or been really challenging or not material they love, and then they go to slate and like you're just like, why did I forget my name? Like, I've been saying it so long. Or like, like, who am I?
Or like I'm 5'3", but I said I'm 3'5". That was weird of me. Like, I always have these hilarious moments. Now, what is awesome about that as well is you actually just get to focus on the creative aspect, because Susanna's right. Not only are you not worried about all the other stuff that we are worried about as coaches, but James, yes, the life of Armstrong, he is doing everything, and you just get to go. He's sending it to your agent if you want that. He's sending it to you. And so, yeah, I just feel like it makes you focus more on the craft, which is why you're there and what you want to do.
Which is how auditions used to be, right? You showed up to Casting Central, you showed up to Milestones. You just had to kind of deal with like, okay, how am I getting there? How's my hair and makeup going to look? And will my sweat stains be too bad if I bike? That was like a major concern. Like, do I pack the shirt? Do I wear the shirt? Oh my God, how am I getting there? But you didn't have to worry about, oh my gosh, like setting up your lights in your living room. Like, do I have enough phone space? Like, the amount of times with my old phone, I was like, I got to delete every photo I have because I have to do this. You don't have to worry about those components, about, all that stuff. So there's that aspect. You're getting an industry standard, competitive, professional shot. That being said, we can't expect an actor to go to a professional coaching for every single self-tape they had. The cost would be like astronomical. Like, if you can afford it, that's amazing. Like, I'm super happy for you. But I think when we look at what's my best value, right? Like, where am I in my career? Where's the value? Obviously, a tape is a professional expense. It's something you can write off on your taxes. But when you're just starting out, maybe you're not working yet. That's where I would say a combination of being in class is the best value in terms of getting that momentum, having that discipline, really flexing those muscles for 12 weeks or 6 weeks. I would always suggest class.
Keep getting up on that mark, training.
Yeah, training, showing up, flexing that muscle, incorporating all the concepts, all the ways that you're learning by doing, learning by watching, and that consistency. At a certain point, even if I have new actors doing one-on-ones, I'll go, it's time to get you into a class. Right?
Yeah. To mix it up, because otherwise you get too comfortable just being one-on-one and you're not used to that.
Yeah, you got to get up there, you got to try new things. And if you're only doing a coaching once a month, we're just not going to get the momentum.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can't teach someone how to act in an hour. Like, we chip away at it. But it's, it's like 10,000 hours makes you a master. So it's like, well, let's start getting those hours on deck. But developmental coaching can be great for, okay, I've been training, I've done a year of different group classes. I really want to look at this one aspect for a couple targeted sessions. Now I'm hopping back into class. Maybe I'm hopping around with a different coach at Armstrong. So, like, knowing when you need to augment your process can also be helpful, and it can also be something a coach can help you discern and figure out.
It can also be a starting point. I've had actors, I'm seeing one of my actors later today, who started in one-on-one coaching and then decided they loved acting, decided they wanted to take it seriously and make it a professional thing. And then, yes, we had the conversation of, okay, now it's important to get in front of other people so you're not just with me. And then between terms, they come back to me, and that's how we work.
Yeah. I think knowing what your process needs at any given time is really important. And again, you might need to hop on with a different coach for a while and be like, okay, I worked with Susanna for 6 months. I want to work with Sarah now. I want to see what happens there. Okay, now I want to work with Ishan. Now I want to work with Steve McCarthy. Now I want to work with Amos. Because having fresh eyes on your work is also really important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Meeting different directors, you're going to be working with different people all the time, and being able to incorporate different notes and respond to different energies and different techniques is really important. Flexibility, that adaptability as an actor, you have to be on set, right? You just get a direction that goes contrary to your understanding of the role. You have to make sense of it, right? And you have to be able to do that without being like, hold on, I gotta film Sarah.
Well, it's funny, actually, Susanna, you and I have had a couple moments like this where I've had actors who work with me one-on-one, and I keep, we're working on the same thing, and then they go into class with you, and they'll come back and I'll say, how was class with Susanna? And they'll say, you said a note in a way that I didn't, that resonated with them, which again, that's totally great. Or more often than not, they say, Susanna said exactly what you've been saying. And I'm like, but isn't that great? Because that means that there's not like multiple, we're all on the same page here
Yeah.
of what we're working on.
Yeah. And again, that's that diagnostic eye, right? That's the professional, like, you know, if someone works with me and they don't like my style of coaching, that's fine, right? They need to find a coach that they respond to. But I've been doing this long enough that I can say with confidence when I watch a tape or when I do an industry consultation, you know, and this is hard to hear sometimes as an actor, but I can go, it's not competitive yet, right? Yet. It's not competitive yet. And here's why, right? And we had a question come in, and it's something I want to touch on from the audience because we definitely answered the is coaching only for auditions. The question is, I'm training, I'm auditioning, but I'm not booking. Suggestions?
A great question.
First, Sarah, I'm sure a lot of actors, I mean, great that you're auditioning. That's one thing I would say right off the, you're auditioning. That's amazing. Yeah. A lot of actors, right? So that means you're repped. You've got rep, great. You've got a team, and you're auditioning. Okay, but I'm not booking. Sarah, how would you? What would you say to that?
Beautiful. The reality is there's two conversations I have. Number one, I look at the work diagnostically, aka we look at the business of it, and it's like, well, are we being specific in what you are putting out there, right? Do you feel like your auditions are specific, your choices are specific, but also you as your own business, you are specific and you feel like, you know, if I'm a casting director, I see where this person can fit in this ensemble or what you have to bring. 'Cause everybody has something unique to bring. That is the reality, right? It's tapping into that. And are you tapping into that? Or have you even identified what that is? So there is an actual answer there when it comes to the diagnostic of it. The other side of it is the part where, yeah, I say exactly what Susanna says. You're consistently auditioning. That means you're consistently putting out good work.
Yeah.
Casting is calling you back in. When it comes to the booking, all we can control is the work itself. Yeah. So let's look at any deficiencies in the work itself. If we feel like we're continually dealing with those, then the reality is you've done your part as best as you can. We've looked at everything.
Yeah.
The booking can be as simple as a height issue based on how they've cast an older sibling.
You don't look like the sibling. The love interest also has brown hair. I mean, that.
Or so many times I see someone book a role that I was really passionate about. And I look and I'm like, oh yeah, they were not looking for me.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the exact same thing. I would say you're training, you're auditioning, but I'm not booking. I would then have to say, I can't really offer any more refined suggestions until I actually do your work.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, like, where is the level of skill in the actual work itself? Is there specific things you could be adding to your training? You know, but I would look at it all from a diagnostic point of view. There's not really any general, if you weren't training and you weren't auditioning, then I would say, are you training? Right? That would be my first question. Totally. Where did you train? When did you start? You know, tell me more about your journey. Where are you at? If you aren't in training and you want to be a professional actor, you are a professional actor, I would say always be training, right? Like it's the same, right? You're not like, well, I'm a professional baseball player sometimes. It's like, no, they have an off season and they work pretty hard in that.
100%.
So then it's really about looking at the work itself. I worked with an actor. I taught her through one of our intermediate level classes. It was a CA2 class. And after she loved the class, she grew a ton. And after the class, she booked an industry consultation. I already knew her work well from working with her, but she showed me 5 of her most recent self-tapes, and I went through them, and she was like shocked. Like she was like, wow, I did not consider that. Like I did not, because I was like, here's what I see in the work, here's what I don't see in the work.
Yeah. And that's all this is, an industry consultation. Like what you were saying, this question of I'm training, but I'm not auditioning, or I'm training and auditioning, but I'm not booking. That is where the industry consult totally comes in, Susanna.
Yeah, that's what I would look for there. We are at 12:55. I know, Sarah, you are on your way to an actor coaching.
Yes, we have an afternoon of really busy coachings at the studio. So, ironically, yes.
So I guess if there are any other, you know, my final thoughts when I think about like why coach, why do it, is for me it's having someone in your corner really focused on the work itself, having a champion for you, having a sounding board, sometimes having a cheerleader, sometimes having a bit of a like, yeah, you need to do more, like, I'm gonna push you, you know, like this is a hard, you know, so my role is to quickly assess where is this actor at, what do they need, and how can I best support them in this, whether it's for an audition or it's in a larger part of their process. But it's to be their one-on-one, we are on the ground together ally. Like that's my job as a coach, is to constantly be fighting for you to be the best at what you are trying to achieve, and to offer various like hats and kind of like, what do you need today? Like I've had actors sometimes come into the session and they're like, I've had the worst day. I just need to cry about my commute here for 5 minutes, and now we need to do the work. And it's like, okay, that's what we needed. Yeah. I'm so glad you feel comfortable enough to do that with me.
Well, exactly. And yeah, no, I agree with everything you're saying. And I guess my final thought on that, just to piggyback on everything, because I couldn't agree more, is I always say it's tailored to you. Meaning whether you're with a coach in a group class and you're up on the mark and I'm working with you, or we're one-on-one in a developmental or doing a self-tape, it is tailored to that actor because, as I just said, by way of everyone is unique, everyone does have their own thing they can bring that someone else can't. Yeah. It's the coach's job to tailor the experience to you and the tools to you.
Yeah. We just had a final question come in I want to address. Is the industry consultation long-term or just one session? Typically it's one session. Typically I don't need longer than an hour to look at your materials and have you up on your feet. But that could be customized to you getting up and doing a scene for me on the day after we've chatted through your materials. Or it could be like, hey, can you review 3 of my recent self-tapes? Can we talk through them? Can we look at my headshots? Can we, you know, but for me, it's never been more than one session.
No, it's, yeah, I agree. If it evolves to something more, it evolves into class developmental. It evolves into training.
A coaching, we're going to do 5 sessions over the next month, you know, something.
Yes.
But it's very customizable. That is kind of, I hope what people take away from today is we kind of have a coaching service that's applicable to wherever you're at in your career. And if any, you know, if you have any more questions about coaching, please reach out to us, hop on a call or an email with James, our office manager. He can walk you through everything that we do. You can send questions to him. If you'd like to book a coaching session with either myself or Sarah, reach out to James. We'd be like, I'm so excited always to meet a new actor, and get you working harder, get you working smarter.
Yes, and independently in a way that you feel like you have the tools yourself. That's so key. I love that. And Susanna, it's always so wonderful hearing just your thoughts and chatting with you about this stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. It was great to chat today, and I'm excited to see the actors. I love working with actors. I have such a deep respect for performers. I had it already as a performer, but now getting the privilege to coach performers, I love working with actors, and I know you do too. And so we kind of get to the studio with you.
Oh yeah, we have our heart in it for sure. Well, off to coach actors, but thank you again, Susanna.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll chat soon. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.